Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Accidental Mentor. I'm Charlene Garrett. As always, I'm thrilled to have you with me today. Before we jump in, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to check out my website at charlenegarrett.com for more resources and leave your comments or questions. Today, I want to talk to you about the little things. It's an idea that's been on my mind recently. You know, those little habits or choices, maybe even thoughts, that often go unnoticed but accumulate into significant impact over time. I've had plenty of experiences that taught me the importance of little things, and I believe they can make or break the vineyard of our lives. I want to take you back to when I was a teenager, somewhere around 16 to 18 years old. At that time, I held a crystal clear vision for my future. Now, I know that seems a little strange, but I recently found a letter that I wrote, and I knew exactly who I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone who lived a life of faith, specifically following Jesus Christ. My aim was to grow in my relationship with him and to bear good fruit in my life. I aspired to help people, leave a positive impact on the world, and build a lasting legacy. Well, I didn't fully grasp the word legacy, but that's what I meant when I wrote this letter. What I didn't do was put that into a specific job description, which was pretty smart. I said what I thought I wanted to do, and then I left it open. But, you know, like many teenagers, back then, I had my fair share of struggles. I had a lot of self-confidence issues, a lot of body issues, and this constant craving to feel included. These were the little foxes that were nipping at my vineyard. When I moved to Dallas-Fort Worth area in my early 20s, I found myself in a community where I could focus on the things that I was interested in, along with my peers and some great mentors. We had so much fun. And I grew in my understanding of myself and the world through those various experiences. Yet, I was still really restless, often consumed with self-doubt and a lot of internal chatter. I'm an emotionally sensitive person, so being emotionally sensitive, I picked up on things and I overanalyzed them. My analysis often produced tiny negative thoughts. I would feed them and dwell on them, leaving me upset and confused a lot of the time. In fact, I was just trying to fix myself, to find the big problems or roots in my life. I went to conference after conference, read book after book, internship after internship, just looking for some help, like from the outside in. Then one day, I was praying. I know that sounds really pious, but I was praying, and actually it probably would have sounded more like whining and complaining. But I wanted to know, God, why me? Why couldn't I fix me? Why were these things happening to me? Why was I so uniquely flawed? Why did I not have what so-and-so had? I felt like I had tried everything. It was in that moment that I felt like the Lord whispered to me, Charlene, it's the little things. It's the little foxes that spoil the vineyard. That's a verse in the Bible, by the way, in Song of Solomon. But it's this like idea of little foxes. And I felt like the Lord said, catch the little foxes. At that moment, I recognized it was the little thought that I had to capture, not the big thing. 2 Corinthians 10:5 came to mind. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. While there are big tragic things in our lives, at that moment I recognized it wasn't the big traumatic moments or grand gestures that had defined my life, but the small, consistent thoughts and choices. I was making a choice to agree with negative things. This choice to agree with Satan, or somebody, he was called the accuser of the brethren. I was agreeing with him about myself instead of agreeing with God. Not in those big moments, but the tiny thoughts that I had 100 times a day. These little thoughts, these little choices were the key to making the biggest difference. Here's the catch, though. Small choices don't show immediate results. I wish I could say it was a quick turnaround and that I made a good choice every single time. I didn't, and it wasn't a quick turnaround. It took time. And later, I learned, many years later, from some neuroscientists that thoughts are actually neurons in our brain. They're real physical things in our brain, and it takes time to destroy them, replace them with good thoughts, and make them solid. In fact, about 63 days, the research says, to destroy a neuron, replace it with a new one, and make it stick. And the kicker is, we often give up just before the work is complete. I don't remember exactly what it is, but somewhere around like day 50 or 55, often we just throw the towel in and figure it's not working. It's the same with other habits. Like if I decide to go running once or twice, or maybe even a whole week, I might feel a little better, but it's not going to drastically change my body or my fitness. Conversely, a negative habit like eating ice cream every night, every day, forever, is not going to immediately show its impact. Over time, though, these small actions accumulate and they're going to show significant change, like change on my waistline. Let's talk about the impact of these small habits on self-talk. Like we've been talking about like fitness and ice cream, but what about self-talk? Negative self-talk was my biggest little fox. I know that sounds funny, but that's what it was. Whenever I'd fail or fall short, I'd not only acknowledge it, but I would shame myself and I would fixate on my mistake. I had to learn to let it go, to forgive myself as quickly as I believe God forgives me. Well, first I had to believe that God forgave me quickly, but once I got there, then I had to forgive myself that quickly. And I had to do it over and over and over again, many, many times. Not based on how I felt, but based on the truth that I found in God's word about my identity. Sometimes I actually was just doing it without fully feeling it at all. I remember being frustrated with how much work this was. I remember I was asking God, will it always be this hard to be sane? And I felt like he said, no, it wouldn't always be hard. And thank God, seriously, it isn't. Several years later, it was years later, that I noticed one day, I don't hear those condemning negative thoughts like I used to. I'm not shaming myself the same way. The truth is, I can see when I do things that are not productive. Like I still do many things that are not productive. Or when I sin, when I miss the mark. But I don't shame myself. I acknowledge it. Like I don't pretend like it's not there. I acknowledge it. I ask for forgiveness from God. I forgive myself. And then I look for a way not to do it again. I make a new choice. What's a new choice I can make? It's the little things that spoil the vineyard, right? But it's also the little things that can nurture a vineyard. Tiny positive actions every day can yield amazing long-term results. This has been new for me in the last 5 years or so. This idea aligns a lot with a man named James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits. It's the power of small, consistent actions and how they shape our identity and results. In fact, James talks about starting with the idea of who you want to be, what's your identity, and then bringing down and finding the tiny habits that would help you become that person you want to be. It's like a flywheel that gathers momentum. With every small push, our tiny choices build up to form our lives. For instance, a small habit I started was tracking my food intake. I've dieted and done different strict regimes, but I'm not necessarily doing that. I just wanted to do one small habit that would eventually help me become healthier. Over time, this simple habit has helped me make more conscious choices about my eating. I'm not fully who I want to be, because who I want to be is a person who lives a very healthy, active life and lives until I'm over 100 years old. To be that person, I need the tiny habits that are going to get me there. So from there, I'm starting with these tiny atomic habits, and tracking my food is just one of them. So I encourage you, think about it. What is one tiny thing you could stop or start that might yield a different result? In fact, go beyond that. Start with, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be today? Who do you want to be tomorrow? What is one identity statement? Whether it's in health, whether it's with your relationship with your spouse, whether it is in work or with your family, who do you want to be? And then what are tiny habits? What is one tiny habit that you could start or stop that might help you be that person in 3, 5, 10 years? Remember, it's not about grand gestures. It's the little things. Sometimes a small habit like saving $1 a day. Like if your identity was, I want to be someone with great wealth in 50 years or 30 years or 10 years. What is the habit that's going to get you there? Or maybe it's the habit of putting your tennis shoes on every day because you want to be someone who works out regularly. Or maybe it's showing specific gratitude to your spouse for the little things that they're doing every day. These tiny habits or choices build up to shape our lives and relationships in unimaginable ways. Thank you for joining me in this Mentor Minute. I hope today's episode inspires you to pay attention to the little things and recognize their power. Please leave a comment at charlenegarrett.com. Share one small habit you're thinking of starting or stopping. I'd love to hear your stories and support you on this journey. The exact link to this episode is in the show notes. Remember, life lessons often come from the smallest of actions. Let's embrace these mentor moments together. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep growing, and keep mentoring. I'm Charlene Garrett, and this has been Mentor Minutes with the Accidental Mentor.